Welcome to Dodgers Dogs. I'm Casey Porter. I'm so glad you decided to tune in. We have a great show for you today as I bring in Chase Witwiska, as I do each and every week. So, Chase, first of all, before we get into the show, Happy New Year. Welcome to 2023.
Happy New Year. I'm excited to see what's in store.
Yeah, hopefully a world championship for the Dodgers here in 2023. You know, they haven't been real active in the free agency market, so I thought I'd throw that out there maybe to cheer some people up as we begin 2023. But I know you're going to love today's show because it's going to be all about pitching. The Dodgers rotation, they have Clayton Kershaw, Julio Urias, Dustin May, Tony Gonsolin, Noah Syndergaard. That's 5. You would imagine that the Dodgers are going to have, at least at some point, a 6-man rotation, and or some of the other guys are going to get a lot of experience because Clayton Kershaw a little bit older. You don't want to wear him out. You know, Julio Urias threw more innings last year than he did, in his entire career. Tony Gonsolin has shown that he has been injury prone throughout his career. Dustin May, Noah Syndergaard, both coming off of Tommy John's, both very, very recent. Noah Syndergaard in 2020 and Dustin May as well. So, you figure that 6th spot, that extra spot there is going to play a big role. So the obvious guys are Ryan Pepiot, Michael Grove, Bobby Miller, Gavin Stone. But a guy that we're going to talk about today, a sleeper pick, Andre Jackson. Nobody's really talking about him as of late.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny. Andre Jackson is kind of a guy that's really flown under the radar, especially recently. There's no talk about him really at all, and he's one of my favorite guys.
Yeah, the big-time changeup. He was drafted in the 32nd round out of high school. He came out of high school from Arizona. He went to high school about 30 minutes southeast of Tucson. So, he grew up playing high-level baseball. 32nd round out of high school. He actually turned that down and went to Utah. And the interesting part of Andre is the fact that he didn't pitch very much. As a matter of fact, at Utah, he threw just 20.2 innings in the 2 years. Of course, he had the Tommy John his last year there in 2017. So he only got the 2 years there at Utah. Only pitched 20.2 innings before he had the Tommy John. So he was more, he played a position more at Utah. He played outfield at Utah, did not pitch a whole lot.
Yeah, and I think that kind of speaks as to, how successful he is now. Not that he didn't pitch in college, but he knows what it's like on the other side, in terms of he knows what it's like to be a hitter. He knows what's hard to hit. He knows what he doesn't like to see, and I think he uses that to his advantage when he's on the mound.
He also knows how hard it is to play defense, so if there's an error behind him, surely that will help him from a mental perspective. Also, you mentioned in the last couple of shows that you love those multi-sport athletes. Now, we're not talking about a multi-sport, but we are talking about multi-position. So to play the outfield at the Division I level in the Pac-12, you have to be very athletic. So you're bringing a really great athlete to the mound. The Dodgers love doing that.
Yeah, and again, I think it plays any time that you're able to get multiple perspectives of either baseball or another sport. I think it's definitely beneficial, and like you mentioned, playing in the Pac-12 and playing in the outfield, he had to been a high quality outfielder as well.
Yeah, I got to talk to Drew Avens, about a month ago, maybe a little bit more than that. Avens went to Southeastern Louisiana, and his Southeastern Louisiana Lion team played Andre Jackson in Utah, and I point blank asked him, okay, Drew, who was the better outfitter that day? He said, well, Andre got to start that day, so it would have been him. And he said, hey, every once in a while he'll grab a bat, and that dude can still stroke, just a natural athlete. Yeah, but Andre Jackson, again, a guy that like you said, I think flying under the radar coming into 2023, and I think there's some good reason for that. Of course, he made his major league debut in 2021. We all remember that, where he came up and used that big changeup and threw 4 scoreless innings. But here's the deal, and I got to talk to him at the end of 2021. By the end of that year, not last year, the year before that, the year that he made his major league debut, his fastball was averaging only 92 miles an hour. Okay, and the exciting thing about Andre, which is why we're doing this and why I think people need to perk up and pay a little bit more attention to him, is that his fastball is 4-seam, was back up to averaging 95 this last year. So I don't know if he had dead arm. I don't know, coming off the Tommy John, then he had the 2020 where nobody got to play and all that. Maybe he had a little bit of dead arm towards the end of 2021, especially when you consider the travel and the excitement that he had making his major league debut. But again, I wanted to point out 92 miles an hour at the end of 2021. This last year, he averaged 95.
Yeah, and 3 miles an hour is a really big difference, but averaging 92 coming off the Tommy John and then not playing the year before is not really surprising to me, simply because I know from experience, how hard it is to bounce back, not only from Tommy John, but even just the offseason. The offseason, there's not as much throwing involved. You're trying to give your arm a rest and all those things. And I'm sure he was going through a throwing program and all kinds of good stuff to help him get back in game shape. But in my opinion, I don't think you can get back in game shape until you actually play in games. So...
Yeah, and when you're talking about throwing 92 at the AAA Major League level, you kind of feel like that you have to be perfect with that. I know that sounds crazy to guys like you and I, that 92, you're feeling like you're having to pinpoint the four seam. And coming into this year, I am not going to sugarcoat this. Andre Jackson, point blank at the beginning of 2022, this last season, just completely struggled to the point to where in July he got sent back down to the developmental list. Let me give you some numbers. In May, his ERA was 3.50, and I'm not giving these numbers to criticize or to downplay Andre Jackson. I'm actually giving them as a testament to just the courage that he showed this year, the hard work that he put in, and a compliment to the developmental system in the Dodgers system. In May, Andre Jackson's ERA was 13.50. His batting average against was 314. His whip was 282. He had 16 walks and 11 strikeouts. Okay, in June, he had 4 appearances. His ERA was 4.96. He had 12 walks and 12 strikeouts. So at that point, he had 28 walks and 23 strikeouts in the last 2 months. Okay, so he gets sent to the developmental list in June, and honestly, I had seen every one of his appearances at that point. I had seen him in person. I was worried about him. I mean, he looked, Chase, you've seen guys to where they kind of look broke. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. He kind of had that look to him, like he'd lost all confidence and didn't quite know where he was going. So they sent him to the developmental list, put him on the developmental list. Okay, he came back for 3 appearances in July, posted a 3.75 ERA, and then after he came back off the developmental list during the end of July, check this out: 19 strikeouts, okay, 3 walks.
Yeah.
How good is that, huh?
That's insane, but I think it just goes to show that I'm not saying that he wasn't hungry when he was up there, but I think getting sent back down and really finding himself again is what he needed and what was best, and clearly it worked out for him. But you can, and any baseball player knows this, I mean, you can go through a month or a 2-month struggle and it just feels like, I suck. I can't do anything, and whether that's at the plate or on the mound, I mean, you can go at the plate, you can go 0 for 15 and you're like, I don't even know what I'm doing wrong, So I think that sometimes just really going back and finding yourself again is definitely beneficial, and I think it clearly worked out for him. So,
no doubt, going to the developmental. So he went from the developmental list, came back, and then to finish the first month back from the developmental list, he had 19 strikeouts to just 3 walks. Gets called back to Los Angeles on August the 7th, and then gets recalled, optioned 5 different times, and then ended up the season on the 40-man, got recalled after the season was over. So, boy, what a ride, what a season. I mean, you talk about ups and downs and trials and tribulations and just the mental toughness and grit. Andre Jackson should have proved to every Dodgers fan that not only is he talented, he is also extremely mentally tough.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes me like him so much. He had so many different scenarios come at him, and it's very, very, very rare. I mean, heck, he might be the first person to do that. Just because of how different those games are, and I think that it goes to show not only how mentally tough he is, but how good of a baseball player he is, and how much trust and faith the Dodgers organization has in him.
No doubt. And that's what the minor leagues are for, is to get you back. The way that I explain it is, the major leagues are all about results. The minor leagues are all about the process. So you get to go back to the minor leagues and figure out, you mentioned a minute ago, hey, what has always made me good? What is it that I'm actually good at? Let's go back and focus on that. And for Andre Jackson, no doubt about it, it's his changeup. We're going to show it to you here in a minute. We're going to go through a lot of video of him and break it down. So stay tuned for that here in just a minute. But the big time changeup. So we're going to get to it. You ready to break down some film of Andre Jackson?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we mentioned that Andre Jackson's best pitch is his changeup. Greg Maddux, he was one of the first guys to have that hopping changeup that would break back over the plate. So I wanted to show you, let me go ahead and rewind that. I wanted to show you Andre Jackson and Greg Maddux in action. Now, Chase, tell me what you see here as far as motion goes.
In terms of, anything from, separation to release, everything looks really, really similar. And obviously, Greg Maddux was a pretty successful guy, so I don't think he's a bad guy to copy. But it's crazy in how many similarities there are. Yeah,
and the thing about it, I think what really helped Andre is that instead of trying to just throw the ball through a stack of bricks, I think what he did was he just kind of went back to his roots and started pitching more. And as a matter of fact, his changeup is the pitch that he threw the most in 2022. This last year, he throws his changeup 54% of his time. His four seam he throws 37% of the time. Then he throws a slider and curveball combined less than 10%. But his changeup, we're going to see here in a minute. Let me go ahead and release that. You're going to see is the pitch he throws his most. It has become his go-to pitch, and I think that's why he had so much success towards the end. Watch this changeup. Look at the two. Look at the two together. Tell me what you see.
I see them both starting it up and in, and ending into the top of the strike zone. It's a very impressive pitch. That you look at. I go back to this.
There it is. Look at that. That's like a left-handed slider, isn't it?
Yeah. You look at how these guys. These are professional baseball players. How they're reacting to that pitch, and they act like they've never seen anything like it before. Which just tells you how good that pitch is.
Yeah, no doubt. Here's his four seam. So let's move on to the fastball. His four seam again. Up in the zone 93, but he averaged 95 with it this last year. Here's the tunnel off of it. There you saw the four. There's the down in the zone, the 92 at the hopping factor, and then there is the changeup off the same tunnel.
Yeah, and I think that's what really makes him so effective, and I think that's why I like him so much. Is like I said, that we've talked about the tunneling factor before, and I think he's another guy that's found a lot of success in doing it. When you can master that concept, you're going to become a really, really good pitcher. And simply because everything looks the same out of hand, and it could be 5-10 miles an hour slower or break a different way. And you have, I think it's something crazy like a third of a millisecond or something to decide what you want to do. I think that speaks volumes as to how good he is.
Yeah, and it allows him to, as you're seeing in this video, be equally as effective, at least have the potential to be equally as effective to lefties as he is righties, which will allow him to get through the lineup, that, or not have to be if he becomes a bullpen guy. There's his curveball. He throws his curveball for a strike a lot, believe it or not. He uses it more as kind of a get me over, but if he becomes a bullpen piece, he doesn't have to be a matchup guy with that changeup because he can get both lefties and righties out.
Right, and it's kind of funny you mentioned that. If he becomes a bullpen guy, I think you're going to see his velo jump again. And the reason I say that is because when you're a starter, doesn't matter what level you're on, you're always taught to kind of pace yourself. Because you as a starter, you want to get through. I'd say at least 5 or 6 just to help out your pen. And not only that, but if you're able to control the game for 5-6 innings, you have a good chance of winning, in my opinion. And I think that, like I said, you're going to see a jump in velo again if he does become a bullpen guy, simply because he's not going to be trying to pace himself. Like right now as a starter, he's not 100% max effort 100% of the time.
No doubt about it. Yeah.
Yeah, he'll bump it up there when he needs to, but like I said, you're taught as a starting pitcher to kind of pace yourself so that you can, save arms and things like that.
Yeah, and get through the lineup at least twice. Of course, we've seen with the sabermetrics that teams don't like to let a pitcher go through the lineup 3 times. But, we've seen that changeup, how nasty it is. There it is again to a righty. And look at that hitter just like, wow, how is that a strike? Again, let me remind people, there's another changeup. As good as that pitch is, as much of it as it moves, okay, he throws that pitch, or he did last year, for a strike 54% of the time. So for a changeup with those kind of metrics, with that kind of tumble, that's pretty darn good, isn't it?
I'd say so. And it's just because he's so comfortable with that pitch. And to me, and it may be different for some people, but when I'm teaching a changeup, to even my high school guys, to me, they always respond to me in hey, that's the easiest pitch I've learned to throw. And I think, obviously I don't know what his grip is and how his release point is and all that, but I mean, it's everything's the same as a fastball, and I think that that's why it's so easy to teach and easy to learn.
Wow, that one right there. Let me go ahead and rewind that. Watch this pitch again, right here, and coming up next. Watch this pitch right here. Whoa. Like I said, that's like a left-handed slider, isn't it?
Yeah, and when you have a major league or a professional hitter on his knee, you did something pretty good.
Yep, and here comes the 4-seam again. That's what the Dodgers call the 4 slot, that down and away slot to righties. They like to tunnel that slot, and there's the high riding 4-seam, and then here's the 4-seam changeup tunnel. So there's that 4-slot tunnel with the fastball. You're going to see a changeup tunneled off that exact same location right there. Pretty good.
Yeah, and it's just like, you see the body language of these hitters, and they're just shocked. They're like, I don't understand. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And I think it's pretty comical as long as it's not happening against you.
Yeah. So kind of what I'm hearing from you is of course, Andre struggled at the beginning of this year. I went over that, and he was to the point where he had to be sent back down to the developmental list. He was not throwing strikes, point blank. I mean, now just looking at the way he pitches, just kind of as an educated guess, when he does struggle throwing strikes, what would be the reason for you?
I think that there's maybe a sense of just trying to overdo it and trying to, be something that he's not. I mean, it's not a bad thing that he's not a guy that throws 97, because he has the tools and he has the pitches to be able to throw an effective 93 or a 95. And there was a pitch on here not too long ago.
Wow.
Where you watched him and the dude was late on a 93 mile an hour fastball. It's simply because he's basing the 4-seam off that changeup. When you get so used to seeing that changeup that I don't know how hard, maybe 80, 86. That's a 7 mile an hour difference. That's a big difference.
Yeah, his changeup is in the 83 to 85 range. So, yeah, Andre Jackson, and you mentioned maybe trying to overdo it. Now, imagine making your major league debut and then starting that next year, with all of those expectations. Of course, he reached a lot of the Dodgers' top prospects list at that point. It would be easy to press, especially considering that going into last year, he did not have a defined role, so he still felt like that he needed to blast through and define his own role for him. So I think, especially whenever you look at the fact that his velo was down to 92 at the end of 2021, although, his projections were going up, he was entering the Dodgers prospects list. He had just made his major league debut and had success. People knew about him. The velo was down, so that, that combination there would have made it really easy. I don't have any inside information on it, but you would think that combo would have made it very easy for Andre to press at the beginning of last year.
Absolutely. And, these guys, from the time that they get drafted, and heck, most of them, by the time they're born, they have the want and desire to be, with the big club, under the big lights, in a big game. And when when you're that close to a lifelong dream, it's so easy to try to, be even more than what you are. He's obviously they saw success in him before he tried to do that. But I can speak from a player's perspective. When you have a chance to do something that you've always wanted to do, it's easy to try to be even better. I mean, usually
no doubt.
That's when you'll find your struggle.
Yeah, trying to do something that, instead of just being you and just trusting the fact that what you do is good enough, trying to be something that you're not. Let me also reiterate, okay, came out from Utah, only pitched, how many innings did I say he pitched at Utah? 20.2 innings in college. That is it, 20.2 innings in college. Then had the Tommy John in 2017. So, that 2019 season was a season where he was still trying to just get over, build pitch count and get over the Tommy John. Then 2021 was canceled, and then 2020, in 2020 was canceled, excuse me. And then 2021, he made his major league debut. So you're still talking about a guy last year with not a whole lot of experience as far as pitching at the big time level, right?
Yeah, and it's crazy to see how successful he's been, knowing that he's only pitched 20 innings in college.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So Andre Jackson, this is a good video just to kind of show people the upside, plus, explain some of the things that might have happened to him in 2022 from, I have communicated with Andre on a couple of different occasions. I communicated with him last week and explained to him that I was looking through some StatCast stuff and saw that his velo is back up to 95. So Andre Jackson, wanted to bring him back up because as we get to talking here in just a minute, there's going to be a need, I think, on more than one occasion for a sixth spot in that rotation. And obviously you can't ever have enough bullpen depth. So I do think Andre Jackson will have a role somewhere. What that be, we'll see. But any final thoughts before we move on to the next segment?
Nope. I think he's a high quality guy, and I think that even just watching this film over and over again, it's pretty effortless, and it's impressive because it's so it looks like he's just so comfortable and so smooth.
All right, so there you have it. There's the Andre Jackson video again, mentioned just a minute ago that the 5 spots are pretty sewed up, but when you look at Kershaw getting a little bit older, Julio Urias, you don't want to wear him out. Tony Gonsolin has a history of injury. Dustin May, Noah Syndergaard, both coming off of Tommy John. So you figure there's going to be a 6th spot that's going to be used quite a bit, if not further than that. So your first 4 guys, well, I don't want to say first 4, but your 5 guys that are eligible for it, Bobby Miller, Gavin Stone, Ryan Pepiot, Michael Grove, and who we talked about today, Andre Jackson. So sort through that, Chase.
I don't know if it's actually going to be a defined 6th role. And what I mean by that is I think you're going to see all 5 of those guys at different points in the season, because they all bring something different to the table, but they're all really successful, So I think it's going to come down to, how you're game planning against certain teams and all that. But I think that there's definitely a really, really good possibility that you're going to see all 5 of those guys.
Yeah, and not necessarily just in a starting role. Could you see maybe some of those guys being brought in to help the bullpen?
Absolutely. I think, speaking from experience, you can never have enough arms, and it seems like you're always running out in a short amount of time. So I think that you could definitely see, even 2 or 3 of those guys, at a time, all in the bullpen together.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And again, we've seen that, you don't even have to win 90 games to get into the playoffs. So one of the frustrations I had, of course, the Dodgers front office is the best in the game. This is not a criticism necessarily. This is just kind of, everybody has their own opinion on things, right? So one of the things that I thought they should have done last year when they had the division basically sewed up in June, why not bring up Ryan Pepiot and let him have 15 outings and give Michael Grove more of a runway? Why not, pitch? Of course, Andre Jackson was making his way back. Why not let Bobby Miller come up and get his feet wet? Gavin Stone. Of course, Gavin Stone made a lot of jumps, so I can see those guys. But, so when it comes to this year, in my opinion, instead of it being, of course, we've seen winning the division doesn't guarantee anything. It's not that pot of gold that it should be. So really all you got to do is qualify for the playoffs. We saw that. So why not let these young guys get all the experience they need and develop a new core with the Dodgers?
Yeah, I think that's going to be it might bite them in the butt just a little bit, simply because they may need some of those guys in big moments, and it's
this year.
I can't even imagine how scary that how nerve-wracking that's going to be, playing in front of all those people, and you're actually playing against the Giants or whoever. I think it might hurt them just a little bit. But that's also, that's kind of why I'm excited to see how those guys respond. And I'm also excited to see some of the position players and the young position players and see how they do.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And the thing, like I mentioned, that there's going to be, there's 40 guys on your roster, and the way that they have the playoffs set up now, to where, way back when it was only the winner of the American League and the winner of the National League, so you couldn't experiment at all. But I think the way that things are set up, it allows you to give your rookies, your prospects, it gives you the runway that you need to give them the innings, the at-bats, whatever it may need to define a role. And, I was talking on our Dodgers Prospects podcast with Tim Rogers last night, man. And another thing, not only bring up your prospects, but define the role for them. Leave them in that role and let them get comfortable in that role. As well as anybody, being a player now, a coach, there's nothing you can do better for a player than defining their role and letting them get comfortable.
Absolutely. And I think that, and that's at any level, if you have to find some kind of consistency. And I think that's kind of the hard part of being a coach, because you never really want to settle, for a player. But at the same time, they were put in that role for a reason, and I think that if you let them get comfortable, you're going to see them be more successful. And they may be successful, right off the bat and in different positions. But I think what would benefit the player the most, for sure, is to find, where you think they'd fit best, and just let them go, let them play.
Yeah, no doubt. And one thing about big-time prospects like Bobby Miller, Ryan Pepiot, and these guys, the one thing you want to learn about them is how they handle failure, right? Because they haven't had very much. I mean, Ryan Pepiot was the single-season strikeout. He set the single-season strikeout record at Butler and the strikeout record for an entire career. So you're talking about guys that have had very little, if any, failure. So you want to, one of the things that you want to see as they grow through your system is, hey, how do they handle failure? I think Andre Jackson passed that test with flying colors last year. Would you agree?
Absolutely.
Because he had failure at the beginning of last year. I'm going to say that point blank.
Yeah, he definitely did. And he like I said, he went and found himself. He came back, and he was really, really good.
Yep, no doubt. So, okay, we've talked about the rotation there. So how many pitchers do you see making starts for the Dodgers this year? Do you see all 5 of those guys getting a start? Do you see all 5 of those guys playing a factor for the Dodgers this year?
I don't see why not. Like I said, I don't think you're going to define a 6th role, unless one of them, just goes and, balls out multiple times. I don't think that you're going to see a consistent 6th man, and I'm personally okay with that. I want to get all these guys reps. I want to see them, in the big leagues with big time hitters, in a big time environment, and see how they perform. Because it's different than AAA, different than AA. It's completely different than anything they've ever experienced.
So if the Dodgers lose more games this year, of course, they won 111 last year, so, it was pretty easy going. There were no real stressful moments, at least for the regular season for Dodgers fans. So let's say they're not anywhere close to being on that pace, and you're dealing with rookie pitchers, a couple of rookie position players. Will Dodgers fans be able to handle that? Will the Dodgers fans give the runway to these guys?
I said it a couple of shows ago, and it's hard to say, but, man, we've been, as Dodgers fans, we have been completely spoiled for the last several years. And, and I think that, from a coach's perspective and a guy that played the game for a long time before, I think it's going to be good to have a little bit of a growing pain. I think it's good to see really what kind of guys, and disregarding the fans at all, I think it's going to be important to see what kind of guys you have in your clubhouse when they're experiencing failure. Are they going to stick together? Are they going to band together?
Great point.
Or are they going to kind of pucker up? But speaking in terms of fans, it's going to be hard to see them have those small struggles, but at the same time, I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yep, no doubt. You may lose a couple of battles along the way, in 2023, meaning games, to look at the big picture, to win the war at the end, because the war at the end would mean that you've added depth, you've gotten experience for some of your best prospects in the system. So I think there is a path for the Dodgers to win enough games to put themselves in great position to win a World Series, qualify for the playoffs, and get all the prospects the amount of time that they need all at the same time. So, hey, we got a couple minutes left, Chase. It's gone way too fast again. So final thoughts.
I'm really excited not only to see Andre Jackson again, but those four other guys. I'm excited to see all of them perform at a big time level on a big time stage, and I think a lot of people may be surprised at how they do at this in this big environment, and with the Los Angeles Dodgers, if you will. I mean, they're in my opinion, the biggest name brand in baseball.
Yeah, you're on a stage.
Yeah, and you're going to have a lot of eyes on you. You're going to have a lot of cameras. So I'm interested to see how they do, but I don't think that I don't want to say it and jinx it, but I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of struggle.
Right, and I think the Dodgers, if they play to their potential, you still have Freddie Freeman, Mookie Betts, Will Smith, Gavin Lux, Max Muncy, and then Austin Barnes obviously is your core. I think most teams would take that as your core, and then you have your next level of guys that Julio Urias, obviously Clayton Kershaw, those guys as your pitching core. So there's a good core there to build your younger guys around. Then you have guys like Chris Taylor and Trace Thompson that are veteran to the game, and so there's a good core there to kind of bring your rookies into and your prospects into to develop around. So, hey, it's been a great show again today. Chase, thanks for joining. For all of you fans out there, all of you Dodgers fans for tuned in, thank you for that, and go Dodgers.